Introduce Sam. I met Sam a while back at one of these groups, and don't remember if it was Get Coffee that I met him at originally, or if it was Get Hired Tech. Yep, Get Hired in Tech here in this location. And Sam is somebody, and I ran into him a couple months ago, I don't know, a couple months ago at a Get Coffee event that we're hosting, and he was telling me about all these things, and got to know him a little bit about all the things that he does. Not only a tech guy, he's in real estate, he's in a bunch of different things. When I coach folks on what to do and how to approach your job search, a lot of times I coach you on staying active, being busy, not stopping, not slowing down. You know, so Sam epitomizes everything that I coach and teach. He's doing it the way that you're supposed to do it. He's super active and still is within the tech space and does a lot of things. So I thought, you know what, he's doing everything right. Let's have Sam come up and talk about it. So without further ado, Sam, come on up.
That was kind of a lot of build-up for what I feel like I'm actually doing, but I appreciate it. Thank you. So a little bit of background about me. I did start the traditional way of job searching, where you graduate from school and start putting out applications. I did that for a while before I kind of realized that that doesn't get you a long ways. And it was meeting people like Max that really opened my eyes to what you actually have to do to get hired. So a little bit about me. This is my technical bio right now that I like to brand myself at. It looks a lot more impressive when I write it all down like this than I actually feel like, but that is technically me, I guess. So I graduated with business administration and a computer science minor. My idea with that was originally computer science was going to be my focus, and then I realized I don't want to be stuck behind a computer day in, day out doing only computer things. So I decided to diversify in college a little bit. I started business and kept computer science as a minor, thinking to kind of bridge the gap between business people and technical people who I learned don't always speak the same language. After that, I went on to get my MBA. Later on, I got my realtor's license, and I recently finished a Cornell certification course to become a certified data analyst, which was a fun course actually. Learned a lot. I've worked in several different industries: healthcare, insurance, real estate, and finance. And when you put it all together like that, it sounds fairly impressive, but it's just me diversifying and learning different skills along the way. So this is how I started out. I was able to get a job and move to Portland around 2011. Worked with that company for several years, and then various changes were happening in the company. I felt I learned what I needed to learn. I decided I needed to move on. So I started sending out resumes, and I would send out dozens and dozens of resumes over the span of months to a couple years of looking. Those resumes turned into probably about 3 interviews and no follow-up. I just did not understand really how to take the step to get from where I was to where I thought the next step needed to be. I didn't know what I was doing wrong, because I mean, I had a degree. I was sending out resumes. I had some experience. I mean, I was young. I had, you know, 3-4 years of experience by now. That's a lot for my generation at least. But that was about it. That was all I was doing at the time. Finally, I was able to find a new position with the company that was a previous vendor of the company I was with. I had worked with them very heavily. I was very instrumental in setting up their product with our company, and they were impressed enough with my work that they eventually said, hey, we want you to come do what you were doing for your company for all of our clients. And that was great. It was a great opportunity. I very much enjoyed doing that. But then several months later, the company actually restructured, and I found myself without a job. And I was on the job hunt again with no job to actually support me at that time, which was a scary feeling. And I was desperately putting out resumes, doing everything I could think of at this point to get a job. I did find a job after several months of looking, got hired at Providence and got integrated into their life. But I decided that I did not want that to happen again. If I was without a job, I wanted to be ready for it this time. I wanted to take steps to make sure that I wasn't going to be just blindly putting out resumes. I needed to know what you have to do to get in with people. So it was at that point I kind of learned the golden rule of job hunting. It's not really what you know, it is who you know. And that led me to places like Meetup, Get Hired in Tech Vancouver, where you come, you meet people, you learn from the people who are actually looking at your application for jobs, looking at your resume, looking at your online profiles for LinkedIn and everything. And I learned that I was doing just about everything wrong. Putting in an application alone did not actually get me anywhere. You have to tailor applications. You have to tailor your LinkedIn profile. You have to go and actually meet the people and learn what they're really looking for, because the recruiters don't always know what they're looking for. They have to make sure you hit certain buzzwords that the hiring managers tell them to hit, but they don't actually know what those mean. So you could have something close to what the buzzwords are, but you aren't actually hitting it. So I started to learn. So I started doing new things. I would go to networking events, workshops, online classes. I started, at this time I was being a data analyst at Providence, and Providence was working with Tableau, which is a really good data visualization tool. I wanted to learn more about that so I could become a better rounded data analyst. So I found out Tableau has user groups all over the place. I started telling my boss, hey, I want to go to these user groups. And they said, oh, that sounds good. We want you to learn more. Go ahead. So I started going to every user group I could possibly be allowed to go to. It was hosted by people like Nike, by Cambia Healthcare, several other companies along the way that I can't even remember the name of it because there were so many of them. And I got to actually go in. I would be able to hear from Cambia what they are using Tableau for. And I would learn new and different ways to use Tableau while at the same time learning who to talk to in Cambia if I ever wanted to move over there. Learn more about their stuff. So later on in job interviews, if I had a job interview with Cambia, which I did have several years later, I was able to say, oh, I remember I was talking to your data group and they were doing this and this and this, and it was really interesting, and I was able to make a connection with that recruiter and their team. It was amazing to start doing that kind of stuff. Beyond that, I started to really diversify myself professionally. You saw that list where I now am a licensed Washington State realtor. Well, I was working for a real estate rehabbing company, and I was their operations manager, which means I was in charge of pretty much the entire pipeline from finding the house to budgeting and scheduling the remodel to getting it back on the market. And along that process, I just kept learning, and decided I was going to become a realtor, and studied, took the courses you needed to take to make that happen, and took the big test at the end, which was a very big test, by the way. It's not for the faint of heart. And then paid all my dues, which are also significant to become a realtor. And I am now officially a Washington State realtor. Beyond that, certifications, like I talked about, Cornell certification course. I can now officially say in job applications and on my resume, you know, Cornell certified data analyst. That sounds really impressive to a recruiter and to potential hiring people. Like I said, changing industries. My original industry was focused very heavily on healthcare. I've diversified. I've been healthcare, now real estate, and currently I'm working for Intel as a data analyst there, working with their sales and marketing data. So sales, marketing, technology, I could probably add a couple more things to my list of industries there. And then volunteer work, that's always something that they like to see. So technically my volunteer position is paid, but that's just because the last person there wasn't always doing what they needed to do, and they couldn't technically fire them because they were a volunteer. So I'm a paid position, so they can fire me if I don't perform. But I still classify it as volunteer work just because it's below minimum wage for what I actually do. And then talking to Max, he informed me how to update things like your resume to look a lot more modern and to actually be what people are looking for nowadays. So that's what my resume originally looked like when I talked to Max, and I can see him cringing right now in the back there. I thought it looked really cool back in college when I came up with something like that. But yeah, looking at it now, it doesn't look so good. So this is my new resume, which is a lot more sleek and more modern, focuses more heavily on skills and accomplishments, and takes out a lot of miscellaneous stuff that doesn't really matter. And then I learned, this is kind of a data analyst secret here. People want to actually know that you know how to work with data and how to present data. So the last 4 or 5 interviews I've gone on over the past several months, everyone has actually wanted proof that I can ingest data and produce some kind of visual, readable report at the other end. And what was happening was one company said, find something that you're passionate about and make a presentation on that. Another company sent me data, said make a presentation on this. Another company pointed me to the city of Portland crime statistics and said, tell a story based on this data. And I found that I was spending a good 10 to 15 hours per interview prepping these dashboards for people. And I felt that that was kind of a losing proposition to having to recreate something every time. So I created my own website and started making my own reports and hosting them on my website. And now when people ask for any kind of proof about it, I can just say, hey, yeah, go to my website. I've got a portfolio of reports and dashboards there, and you can take a look at those. And I'll be going and showing that here in a few moments, hopefully. I will not be going to the website because the internet in here is down for some reason, so I saved them on my computer, so I'll show you the actual program instead of the website. But this is kind of a screenshot of the beginning of the website. It's hiresamnow.com. I was able to do the entire website, domain name, email address that goes along with it, all of that, under $40. It's not a huge investment in resources to have something like this that kind of speaks to your brand and presents yourself to the world. So yeah, beyond that, really, I want to spend a few moments just kind of showing an interactive Tableau or Power BI resume and take any questions about that. Any questions right now in between those kind of things? I know I kind of went fast through a lot of that, but any follow-up questions in there? Yes?
Can you describe what you do as a data analyst?
So that very much depends day to day and company to company. Basically, every company creates data points. It depends on the company that the data points matter. One company, I was measuring health outcomes and across their entire population. Another company, now Intel, I'm measuring how their products are selling worldwide. So every company creates these data points. As a data analyst, my job is to ingest all these data points and create visual stories out of them that anyone can then use. And as a data analyst, that's not always easy because the data is not always relevant, it's not always clean, and you have to actually understand the fundamentals beneath the data to then explain and translate how that data actually works to someone. And so different data analysts take different tacks with this. Some people feel like they're, as a data analyst, if you have a data question, come to me, I will answer it for you. I tend to take a slightly different tact. I try to build systems that ingest the data and prepare it for the end person to answer their own question easily. So for example, if someone asks me, hey, how is someone at Intel asked me, how is processor X selling in Germany over the past 4 quarters? Well, I could answer that, but instead I set up systems where they can say, okay, click processor X, click Germany, click last 4 quarters, and it displays a nice visual breakdown of we sold this many, competitors sold this many, in this quarter it was trending upwards, this quarter it's trending downwards. It's preparing all the data underneath that so that those questions can be answered spur of the moment. So as a data analyst, that's what I do. I make the data accessible, because millions and millions of data points, it's not something an average upper level manager can ingest in their mind. So I'm the one who translates from millions of data points to sales grew 12% last quarter, and then they're happy. Or sales shrank 10% last quarter, and someone else gets fired. I just report the data. I don't create the data usually. Yes?
So how much of your work is actually programming, like Panda and Python, and how much is just knowing the software that you just manipulate the field?
So as a data analyst, it varies very much person to person, position to position. I try to stay away from a lot of coding. I can do it. I've definitely have some experience in different codes. One of my goals right now is to brush up on Python and R. I missed that boat while I was doing my real estate track. Those kind of exploded while I was doing that for several years. So I need to go back and refresh myself on those things. But mostly I try to just understand how the programs work. And then each program has its own set of code. Tableau has its own unique language. Power BI has like 3 or 4 different languages depending on where you are within Power BI. So it's more understanding the program and how to get the program to show what you want. There's different levels of coding. As a data analyst, I have to be extremely well versed with things like SQL. VB is a big one. I personally like VB.net as a good programming language for any kind of application I'm writing. R and Python are huge right now. There's a lot of debate which one's going to win out in the end. It's kind of like Blu-ray versus HD DVDs back in the day. We'll see which one actually wins out. But it really depends on where you are in the hierarchy of the data flow. Because it just, yeah, it depends person to person, company to company. Yeah.
With regards to your certification at Cornell,
Yes.
There's a lot of places that offer certificates of various sorts.
Mm-hmm.
What was your process that led you to Cornell?
Cornell, highly rated school. It's an online course that I had met all the prerequisites to just jump in and take the certification. And it fit into my time schedule where I had, these couple months where my workload was going to be a little bit less and I could have the extra time and energy to invest in that. So I examined several other courses, but Cornell fit into that nook the best.
Cool, thank you.
They have also lots of other courses that I could continue on and lots of other ones that don't necessarily apply to me. They have a very good, Cornell is their online courses, certification courses. They have a very good library of classes and courses, certifications. Yes?
Excellent. Where should you learn how to create the visual stories from the data? Because that sounds very different than a data analysis.
It is, and I had a little bit of notes on that I was going to go into. There are websites and courses that it's called Makeover Monday is a big one. It is a group of people, and basically the website publishes a data set every week and takes submissions from all over the world on anyone who wants to explain that data set. And it's all sorts of different data sets. And you can go back and look over past competitions and stuff like that, and and learn a lot of how different people are telling the stories. But really, it comes from that marriage of the business degree and the technical degrees, where as a business person, I have learned what the business people are wanting to see, what they're hoping to see, what drives their decisions. And then as the technical person, I know how to gather the data and format it to be able to answer those questions, hopefully before they're even asked. Usually it's after it's asked and someone's yelled at me for a couple hours that I needed this 3 weeks ago, but I only told you 2 hours. But it's things like that, that it's just understanding the underlying need and then being prepared to show that quickly. Any other questions, or I can jump to showing a couple different interactive resumes, which I started doing and I'm pretty happy with right now. Sorry, I'm going to be out of frame for a second here. So, just for what it's worth, this is what the website looks like. This does not take long to put together. It just gives a little bit about me, a little bit of blurbs about how I tend to approach problems and what I can bring to the table. And then it embeds my resumes on the right in the browser there. And same with down here. Now these are interactive if I have an active web connection, which I don't. So I'm going to switch to the actual program to show it for just a second. So this up here is just kind of an employment timeline and education. It shows when I graduated, when I got various degrees, certifications, licenses, all that kind of stuff. Down here is a breakdown of various skills and industries that I've experienced in. But the fun part about this is if I click, for example, on this, it filters which skills I used on that position, gives a synopsis about the actual position, and just gives more information than you would actually be able to get otherwise. So someone looking for me would say, well, how fresh is their access skills for Microsoft Access? And they can say, okay, well, they use them here, and okay, they use them over here, but they haven't used them here. So things like that. I can update this and make it different in the future if I want, but this is the newest thing. And then, of course, it links out to my LinkedIn profile, links to my actual website, which this is hosted on my website, but then it's also hosted on the Tableau public domain, which they allow you to post your reports to and then link to other websites to embed them. And then it's very similar. That was Tableau, as I said, and then Power BI is very similar, but just obviously a little bit different. And I was going to make it bigger, but I don't want to do that right now. So anyways, it works very similar where you can just click and it gives you a different synopsis, a breakdown of how many skills I used, and of course the different skill levels along the way. It's just, and like I said, this is just kind of an example of your skills. It tells people, hey, I do know how to use these programs. I am able to do what I say I am able to do, and it saves you a little bit of time later in proving that you know how to do what you're saying you can do. So I'm happy to go into any more detail on these. They can be downloaded, I believe, from the various servers if you go to hiresamnow.com, which I love that that domain was available. Or if you need to, you can email me at sam@hiresamnow.com. So any further questions on either of those things? Otherwise, I'm pretty much done there, Max. Yeah.
So this Cornell certification, that was key in your Intel contract?
I don't know if it was key. It definitely seemed to help. They were more impressed by the fact, I talked to them after a while after I got hired. They were more impressed by the fact that I could actually tell a story. They're the ones who pointed me to the Portland crime statistics. And I had to build a story, and out of that, which was very interesting. And by the way, it's interesting, in Portland, the actual city, more crime happens between midnight and noon than it actually happens between noon and midnight. I found that very interesting. That was one of the things that I was able to figure out in the breakdown of my data. But then I broke it down by neighborhood, by time, by type of crime, category of crime, and all sorts of different things, which they said that's exactly what we need. We need someone who can ingest a ton of data like this, because they have data going back to, I think, 1950s or something like that. The data didn't really start being collected till around 2005, I think. But they had the statistics before that, so it was very interesting. And they very much liked that I could display the data in a easily digested format. That was the key there.
So with this idea of continuing to move to the next job, what are your plans to advance yourself further?
So my current plans are, as I said, the brushing up on R and Python. I need to learn those more. That's basically become just kind of a prerequisite for any kind of data analyst position nowadays. And then diversifying my skills, I'm a couple of credit hours away from being a, let's see, what's the actual title? Certified mental health presenter of lifestyle change type thing, where there's this clinic down in California that puts out a lifestyle guide on how to overcome different mental health problems through lifestyle change as opposed to necessarily medications. So I'm a couple credit hours away from completing that course and being licensed to put on presentations about that at schools, churches, what have you. So, like I said, diversify, do different things. People like that you can do different things. Yeah, I've had job interviews where people ask me, well, what do you like to do as a hobby? And I was trying to figure out what I've actually done as a hobby in the past several months, and nothing was coming to mind. So I had to actually figure out what kind of hobbies I can do that, you know, show that I'm more than just a number cruncher. So other hobbies I do photography, and recently I've been getting into 3D printing and designing different 3D models and printing them, which is a lot of fun actually, and much more reasonably priced nowadays too.
What do you do in your spare time between all these?
That is my spare time. I think about 3D modeling as I drift off to sleep. No, it was actually fun. As a hobby, 3D modeling is actually really fun, and after a bout with, maybe this part shouldn't be on the webcast, but anyways, after a bout with norovirus, where I was confined to the bathroom for a couple days, I ended up designing and 3D printing a phone stand that fits on the door in front of my toilet, so I can set my phone and watch movies while confined to the bathroom. And I was able to design and print that in just a couple of hours. And it's silly, it's ridiculous, it's not something I would ever pay money for, but I have it, and it's fun. Anything else?
So your presentation here
Yes.
is an example of you working with data, and the data that you use here is you.
Exactly. Because I know myself, I'm allowed to talk about myself. That was part of the problem, is all my companies before, I'm not allowed to have any of that data.
Well,
even if I did have some accidentally around, I'm not allowed to show it to anywhere. Intel, everything's classified.
But the source of the data here, did you actually create a database to put yourself in, or do you just have it in a flat file somewhere?
This is a Excel file actually that drives this.
You're showing, you're prettying up basically.
And I can definitely show that Excel file. I've got it here, which is pretty fun.
Because that's always the trick.
Yeah, exactly.
Analysis, right? Is you got data that comes from God knows where.
Exactly.
And you got to try to find a way to make it look pretty.
So I've got several different tabs that all have different parts of the data on it. So this one it gives the job ID, tells the job title, who was my employer, where it was, start date and end date. And you can see that things I don't have an end date for are blank, and you have to take that into account when building your actual report, so it doesn't flip out because, you know, computers aren't actually really smart. They can count to 1 and they can do it really fast over and over again. But they're basically just electrified sand, so you gotta actually tell them stuff. And then I've got my education tab, certifications tab. That was a trial thing. This is where I have all the skills grouped by skill group and skill level. And then that's where I have the transition between the skill level and the description of the skill level. So stuff like that is, if I wanted to change, for example, expert to master or something like that, I could either go through this list and change it however X many times it appears, or you have this translation list and you change it 1 time and it feeds back into all those other things. That's kind of the secret to data wrangling and data reporting, is try not to hard code in some descriptive elements. It's better to have a description translation table. And then job skills link, so this links the actual skills to the actual jobs. And then again, the job synopsis, where it's the job ID from that first page and then a synopsis about it. And then all of this gets ingested over here in Tableau. So it looks something like this, where it builds out the entire workbook and links it all together, tells it how the different pages talk to each other. And then the data looks something like this in just, you know, a spreadsheet type format, which, I mean, that doesn't actually do anything. It's when you put it into things like this that it actually, you know, makes a story and tells someone something when they're looking at it. It's very, very similar for Power BI. It's a much, much different interface, but very similar process.
Stan, I don't notice these accomplishments and awards on here.
That's iteration number 2. I'm going to get there. It's going to be a new tab down at the bottom. Each job, I'll figure out some accomplishment I did it there and add it in as a similar tab. I'll have the employment timeline at the top and then accomplishments during there, probably at the bottom. I don't know, we'll see.
He's doing
This presentation as accomplishment.
It will be, actually. I'm planning on putting a line right there, just like how I have the certifications and
He's doing that
educations.
successive improvement to
Exactly.
remind him of how it actually works at work. Because you
Iterative
always produce
improvements.
something and then they always go, oh, can you do this?
Iterative improvements over reports are, yeah, very, very important part of my process. Yes?
So for someone who isn't in the formal data analyst
Mm-hmm.
field, do you recommend, which software do you recommend learning first?
Oh, you're going to get me crucified if I say something. Definitely learn Excel. Excel builds everything. Basically, if you understand Excel, you can start learning other things. Especially, it's not just Excel. You got to learn the formulas behind Excel. Start simple with just like things like sum if, and then if statements. If this is more than this, then show this. Otherwise, once you start learning those kind of formulas, you can translate that pretty easily into something like Power BI because it's all owned by Microsoft. Power BI is then a good place to get a feel for what reporting software does and how it works. It takes a little bit of work to translate that into something like Tableau. Tableau is its own beast. And you know, if you had asked me probably 3 years ago which one's better, Tableau would have won, hands down. But Microsoft has invested a lot of time and energy and probably money into Power BI, and it is a really good competitor now. The main difference between them is that Tableau is more integrated within itself. All the visualizations you're seeing on the screen for Tableau are native within Tableau. You can manipulate them to a much greater extent than you can in Power BI. Power BI's visualizations, there are a lot of them, but they're modules that you have to download. So for example, the same timeline is a module that someone else created that I downloaded and modified to work in my report. it's not easy to have as manipulative of data. There's a lot of great visualizations out there for it. It's just not as integrated in the manipulation.
In Tableau, do you have to export the Excel, or does it natively access it in real time?
No, it pulls it. To post it onto a website or something like that, you have to export it's called a Tableau extract. So Tableau pulls all the data from Excel and builds its own little file that it kind of embeds within the visualization, and then you upload that entire thing to the Tableau server. But it can have live connections to different online databases. You could track stocks or scores, sports scores, whatever, with live connections that are constantly being updated. Same with Power BI. Anyone else? Last questions? No? Okay, well, thank you for listening and interacting. I appreciated it.
Awesome.